No, we just see a beautiful still shot of
Yeah,
your
that
of
tricked me.
your.
I was like, man, I'm not moving very often here. What's going on? Okay, so. Oh yeah, and now he's oh wait, am I first act here? What's going on? No, so he goes. So yeah, now there's 16.5 blinds in because.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is easy pot.
Yep.
Slam the money.
And then we get the King 7-4 Rainbow, and yep. I was like, are we doing any like SPR's one here? Like, I want to just. I guess if we were to have some bluffs, we bet like a quarter pot potentially, but. I mean, we don't have any any connectivity around the 7 and the 4, so I thought potting it was best because of that.
That's correct. The best way to think about these SPR less than 1 spots on the flop, especially multi-ways, because you're only going to really get them multi-ways. They don't tend to happen heads up because you usually need 3 players to like 3 players in a 3-bet pot or something like that to get an SPR less than 1. Sometimes if it's like a 4-bet pot and you get called, that can show up there too. But we only are playing a small betting range if it's a very locked down board texture. So let's say that we're the 4-better and the flop is ace, ace, deuce. Mm-hmm. And we have like 70 in our stack, there's 100 in the pot. In that specific situation, you can play a super small bet sizing. So like 15%. It's either 15% or all in. There's no like half pot sizings, there's no 3/4 sizings, there's no 1/3 sizing even. It's either specific at this specific SPR. It's either we play 15% because we have such a ridiculous range advantage, or we're ripping it in. On this board texture, I'm never having a small sizing. Mm-hmm. I'm either checking or I'm ripping, and that's it. Just because the board isn't locked down enough. Our hand specifically, perfect hand to go all in with. We have ace king, which is most likely the best hand. We want to generate equity from the hands that we beat. We want them to fold out random ES equity, like their inside straight draws and stuff like that they're never calling with anyways. The only hand that I'm ever going to check this flop back with is a hand like king 5-6, where I have everything because I'm the person that raised, and generally we want to generate so many folds. Don't really got to do it. We don't really have to check very often, and so my only checks are either like absolute garbage air, like 9-10 jack queen, when even that might get a rip in it, just because we have some connectivity around the king and the 7. But the only time I'm really checking on this type of board texture is just the pure king type stuff. But this hand is perfect to just rip it in with.
Right. What about king jack 10? You're still not going to go with a small size or a check? You're still going to pot it?
So on this, it's about the board texture type and how it interacts with SPR. And that's where it's different than Hold'em. Because even with a hand like king jack 10, if we get it in against a 5-6x combination or 5-6-8 combination, we're a 60-40.
Okay.
And so the only time that you ever get to play that small sizing is if the board is so locked down that it creates a disproportionate, what we call a disproportionate range asymmetry, which in simple terms just means that we are destroying them so hard at the top of range that we have to bet really small in order for them to continue ever. And such as the example I gave before, the 4-bet pot and the flop is ace deuce.
Yep.
They didn't 5-bet us. We have the aces or ace x way more often. And so we're winning everywhere in range. Therefore, we're forced to bet very, very small to get them to ever continue.
Okay, I'm going to get nitpicky with you one more time. What about the king 8-8?
King 8-8. I'm probably still... That one's closer. Like, that can go into our almost checking range.
Yep.
I'd say. Very close.
Okay.
But the thing is, we just, like... So, this is talking very precise strategy. If you're somebody who's just learning PLO, don't ever play a checking range here with nutted hands. Just rip it. You don't have to get fancy on a board like this. You don't if you're really trying to get into the weeds, you can find some of those checkbacks, and Munker or whatever will do it at some frequency. But for those of us that aren't perfect robots and we just want to build a very easily executable strategy, we can just rip this board with even king 8-8 or king 5-6 or king 7-7 just to make it easier to play. I'd say king 7 might even be your best check just because you block the 7 or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah. Dude, I love that GG has straddles to any.
Dude, there's so much action.
In their online games. Dude, that is, and it's also great because it's not solved either. It creates different. You have to really be thinking on the ball to be able to exploit, to be able to optimize on the scenarios. But yeah, great way to start your session.
Yep.
Easy game.
All right, then we have ace, king 9-7, 8 minutes in. we go. Okay. So yeah,
So-
pretty nice flop here. So I'm guessing, yeah, I open pre, we get 3 callers, we flop pretty much the nuts here.
Yeah, really interesting actually, because multi-ways, generally speaking, we don't get to play a huge c-betting frequency. What are you thinking about on this flop path? Before I give my description, I want to hear what you're kind of talking through.
I think I'm just checking range because they have way more 7s than me, or at least like button and small blind do, so I immediately want to check a bunch. I mean, in general, like you said, we're just doing such little betting multi-way because it's tough to have a lock on a hand. Even on a board like this, we still want to check aces to protect like our ace king. We want to check some 7x to protect our top pairs as well. So, I mean, we don't want to bet here blocking the calling range, especially, and not to mention having a king of spades. Like, that's especially terrible.
King of spades is a great call out. I agree with the majority of your thought process. The only thing that I want to add is that, yes, we want to balance by checking some of our ace-ace because so that we can balance against ace-king and things like that and be protected. But we do have the ace-ace advantage. And when you have 2 aces and you don't have a 7 in your hand, it's likely that someone else has a 7 in their hand, which means that you want to start betting immediately to start bloating the pot. And so that's the thing. Because we are the tightest range as the hijack here, we are the most ace-ace heavy. Therefore, we do get to bet at some frequency on these board textures because we want to be able to bet 3 streets so that by the river we're getting all the money in against 7x. We don't bet often, right? Because it's multi-ways and for all the other things that you described. But we do have to bet sometimes, specifically because we have that ace-ace advantage, and that's just something that's important because you want to think about how to maximize value in those situations. A lot of the times, people aren't even going to be betting 7x on the flop because they're so scared of ace-ace. Having the king of spades in our hand, as you pointed out, is super important because it does block that king high flush draw. One thing that's really cool though is that when we have ace-7, a lot of 7x, all of the other 7x's still exist, and those are drawing dead. And so, a lot of the times, so this is a pretty good 7 to check because it's impossible for us to get sucked out on the turn. Like our hand is very locked down. We have so much of it, and we block the calling ranges, right? Whereas when we have ace-ace, we want to bet that at a higher frequency because we don't block the 7. But with this specific combination, we do want to be checking at a higher frequency because we block our opponent's calling range or their continuing range, and so. This combination is good to check, but if I had, for example, a 7, 8, 9, 10, so a 7 and then 3 cards above the 7, that's a good combination to be betting with, versus like a hand with 7 and cards below the 7, just because of how full houses get distributed.
Yep.
But yeah, that's what I'd be thinking about. The rest of your thought process, I really love. Pointing out the king of spades, super important. That's huge for our opponent's calling ranges. It also, yeah. That's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Okay,
here.
so since we do have the ace-ace advantage and we're allowed to do some betting in this board, only small betting, what are your bluffs going to be? Are they just going to come from flush draws? And of this...
Ace-X flush draw.
Oh, top pair plus a flush draw.
Yeah, because you want to block your opponent having pocket aces.
Yep, okay.
It also will come from hands like 8, 8, 9, 9 flush draw, right? Where we have 4 outs to a boat above the 7.
Right, love that.
Yeah, like 8, 8, 9, 9. Even like kings, we probably start to check a little bit more. But like those middling 2 pair, we call them RROO, like random of the same rank. Those are really good hands to find a bluff with on the flop here. Okay.
And do you treat king queen of spades any different to king 10 of spades? So you have like king queen 8 9 and king 10 8 9. If you have the king queen of spades, do you want to check that more because you're getting called by less flush draws? Versus king 10 of spades?
I don't think that it's that relevant, to be honest.
Okay.
It kind of shows up, but on these paired boards, we just start to care a lot less about the flush interactions on these paired boards. That's the way that it works.
Yep.
Just because there's already a boat. There's already a boat present, so we don't care as much about it.
Okay. Well, play the check, and flush completer on a turn, and. We're mainly just doing small betting on flush completers when we check the flop. Although it's probably a little bit different multi-way because we're checking so much on this board anyway. But if this was, say, hijack small blind, we are mainly doing small betting on this turn. Actually, it might be a little bit different because I think we can do some big betting on the ace 7-7 because we're not going to see about as high of a frequency on that board. But on like a 9-7-7 flush completer on a turn, we do more small betting because a lot of our better flush draws are betting the flop.
Yep, that's it's less about the flush draws and more about the ace interaction.
Yep.
And so on 9-7-7, we're never c betting that board, hijack versus cutoff, because the cutoff's flatting range is doing so well against
What
us.
about hijack small blind?
Hijack small blind? As the hijack, so that's a different scenario because we're the in-position player.
Yep, okay.
And so as the in-position player, you do get a c-betting frequency. If you're the out-of-position player, the way that Munker thinks about it is the same way as building a leading range.
Yep.
So is your range strong enough, we've talked about this before, is your
Yep.
range strong enough to overcome that positional disadvantage? On this particular turn, I would probably be going with a half pot or 3/4 sizing. Like the thing is, and I'm actually going to probably use my half pot sizing because we just have all of it. We have the ace, we have the 7, and we have the king of spades. So it's so hard for our opponents to find a call here, and so we want them to continue as wide as possible.
Okay, so small blind now decides to bet.
Small that you love to see that.
Yeah. And I'm also like, do we ever have a raising range on this card? Like, how can we? Just wouldn't
Nah.
make. Like, even if
Nah.
we just had like, if we didn't have any of this, like
Yeah,
if we just have king queen of spades, no ace, like just raising anything in general doesn't make sense. Here,
So
does it?
we can have a raising range on the on like a queen, a jack, or a 10, king, queen, jack, or 10, because we have pocket kings, pocket queens, pocket jacks, pocket
Perfect.
10s. So on those turns we can have a raising range, but on this 3 there's no cards that really adjust the effective nuts in this scenario, and so we don't get to play that many raises as a bluff because the nuts haven't changed.
Okay. And I elect to go for a small size on this river because I'm blocking nut flushes, I'm blocking trips and top pairs, and that's how I thought about this spot. What are your thoughts?
My smallest sizing is half pot usually on the river. I very like there are some spots to find like a 1/3 sizing, but I probably am gonna just be using a half pot sizing here.
Okay.
Like especially because we're gonna get some bigger sizings on the river with our 7x's that didn't make a full house as well, right? Like let's say that we have 7x checked flop, calls turn. Let's say we have 7, 9, 10 jack here that checks flop, calls turn, misses boat on river. We want to be betting bigger to force folds from flushes at a frequency. And so you need to think about that portion of your range as well.
Yeah.
These paired boards are really tricky, and you have to put a lot of thought into the ways to deconstruct them. And so because of that, I need to have a little more oomph in my general betting range because I'm going to have bluffs here when I do get to the river. And so but that doesn't mean that I need to bet big. Like I would never use a full pot sizing here, especially because let's say my opponent has a combination like 7-8, they're check raising me anyways. I'm not going to be getting checked. I'm not going to be losing value against 7-8 by betting half pot because those combinations are going to be check raising me at a relatively high frequency. The 8 specifically is a phenomenal card because it is a card that is not in our hand that has connectivity to the 7. So we don't block 7-8, meaning it's more likely our opponent has 7-8, which means we actually have to size up a little bit with this value portion of our range, just because it exists more often. The most likely scenario is that our opponent has a flush. We block the king high flush. They probably have some sort of a middling flush. They're never supposed to be betting that on the turn anyways, but this is a people aren't playing as optimally as they should be here, and so we kind of have to make an adjustment to account for the fact that there are going to be more middling flushes in our opponent's range, and then be able to actually put some pressure on those hands when we do have the portion of our range that's not beating it.
Right. Now, if we were to deviate from GTO here, like you would say there's very little, if no leading from small blind on that turn? That turn betting range, does that exist?
Say a question one more time, please.
Does the turn betting range exist from small blind when it checks around 4 ways here or not? It does?
Totally. Yeah, they have 7x.
Yep, okay,
Right.
cool.
If you have 7x no flush, great hand to be betting with.
I'm still
Because you
wrapping
get
my
to-
mind around bluffing with 7x combos here by the river.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty big like your non-full house 7x range is a really big portion of your bluffs.
Okay.
Because it's very unlikely they're going to win it. Like the only hand class they beat is the ace x hand class, which is why it's kind of like And a lot of the times, people aren't calling with ace x on a flush completing paired board, right? Like even let's say that you had your combination where you just had ace king 9 8, and with the king of spades, and then you get led into on the turn. It's a fold. Unless you want to turn it into a raise, which is not a bad spot. Like that could even be a bluffing combination at that point, because we have the ace blocked and the proximity to the 7. But yeah, I don't think you did anything wrong here. The only thing that I would maybe adjust is a bit sizing up a little bit on the river. I love your turn check back, and I love your flop check back. It was really well played.
Nice. Okay, next.
Also, shout out to Joey Ingram in the chat. What is good, Joey? Always good to have you.
Okay.
Hope you're enjoying the way too much content we're giving away.
Right. Ace King 6-5 here. Yep. So the Ace King 6-5 double suited coming with a squeeze here.
Yeah. I love it. Double suited ace x for chat. Double suited ace x combinations. Click the pop button.
We don't have like, it's unfortunately not like an ace and king high suit. It's just an ace high suit, but yeah, we still like this
bad
one.
suit not great, but it's still ace king double suited. And the reasons why you love ace king double suited in 3-bet pots is because they just flop enough equity to click the pop button with at a high frequency. This one is a tough spot. Like very, very, very close. I think checking is fine. I probably check here just because we don't get enough full, like this smashes calling ranges, right? Jack X, we have no diamond block. And we have no straight, we have a straight draw block, but that doesn't matter. We want the equity of the straight draw versus the block at this SPR. And so like having the ace king of hearts with the jack of hearts, that's actually a ton of equity. Backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, plus the pair 6. But having no diamonds in our hand, it just makes it really close. And we're at SPR 2, which is very different than SPR 1. This is SPR 1. I can just rip the flop and not think about it.
Yep.
But at SPR 2, there's just too much in there, and we don't have a good enough hand to play a c-bet with.
Okay, yeah, it did cross my mind to check shove versus an imposition bet, but yeah, the SPR kind of made me lean against that. What are your thoughts on Ace King 5-4 here?
Do I have a diamond in my hand?
Nah, same suits.
Ace King 5-4. I can play a half pot fold. Is what so at SPR 2 it's very different than SPR 1. We actually get to have some half pot folds in our range.
Right.
We're gonna have a half pot folding range. We're gonna have a full pot. If we bet full pot, we're never folding. And that's with our overpair portion of range, like aces, kings, queens, not jacks, but like our less robust, more just immediate equity portion of range. That goes for the full pot sizing. And then the half pot sizing on this board texture goes exactly with the hands that you're talking about. I would rather have like ace 4 5 6 double, so that I have the pair block and the straight draw. But ace king 4 5 is a good hand to play a half pot fold to, as long as we have the hearts, that nut flush, because that's going to give us enough turn cards that like the 10 of hearts at literally any heart. That's enough equity for us to rip turns. So we need that backdoor flush to do that there.
So your full potting range on a flop only consists of overpairs. You have no other draws with it, just overpairs.
I'll have my worst Jack X too, like my King Queen Jack 10, 8-9 Jack 10, like my one pair maybe one diamond type stuff. Even my one pair 2 diamond type stuff. If I have like 8, 9, 10 Jack diamonds, that's a great potting hand. What I'm half potting is like ace Jack 5 nut flush draw, or ace 4 5 nut flush draw. Like those really robust combinations, those are the ones that go into, or Jack 10 10, right? Our sets, or 6 6 7 7. That stuff goes into my half potting range. But the hands that we are fine generating folds with, those are the ones that go into the full pot range.
Are we ever squeezing ace 4 5 6 double suited pre here?
I think the cutoff literally might be ace 5 6 7.
Okay.
Actually, but it's close. As we like, Munker hates the cards below a 5, but ace 3 4 5 never. Ace 4 5 6 probably a mix. I'd have to look it up. I don't know but ace 5 6 7 very good squeezing in this spot.
Okay, but you only have 2 sizes on this board. It's half pot and full pot, and that doesn't change whether it's 3 ways or heads up.
Yes, as long as the SPR remains the same.
Okay.
Let me rephrase that. Okay, in a simplified strategy, yes. And so I'm gonna give that as the answer. If you're going really, really, really hard, multi-way pots do start to have some different sizings because of the interactions of of how the polar parts of ranges interact. But as somebody who's just trying to execute straightforwardly, let's just keep it as a yes and think about it that way.
Beautiful. So
We have a question. Is ace like the ace king of Hold'em? Kind of. It's mostly just like who has more of it in your range. And one of the best things about ace king, which is different than, which is this, sorry, ace ace, which is the same as ace king, is that you have more of the nut flushes and the nut flush draws. That's what's really important about the ace ace hand class in PLO. Get betting on the turn, very easy fold, yeah. Well played.
Small size from small blinds that exists as well.
It's usually half pot, full pot.
Right.
Those are like this is too dynamic of a board texture to support a small sizing, I think.
Oh, I didn't see the run out. Just left it because I was bored.
Min 3-bet.
Yeah, this is the other hand. So
I'd flat that. I'd flat that.
Really, yeah, because I'm just not sure because we still have a player behind who can just pot it again. So I wasn't sure like if like king queen queen 10, king queen queen jack was the cutoff. Like, do we need a stronger suit?
You can 4-bet fold to a 5-bet also. I actually like that a little bit more, specifically because we have a king in our hand. When we have this combination, like decent queens, we hate getting against kings. That has us absolutely slaughtered. And so when we 4-bet here, it's really good to have the king in our hand because we remove kings from our opponent's range. And then if we get 5-bet, we just fold because we're not doing that well against a 5-betting range.
Okay.
And so this and especially against a player like I think they're from China, min 3-betting the button. That sounds like some button clicking.
Yeah.
And against those ranges that are really wide, pocket queens, especially like a king, queen, queen, X hand class, does really well because you're crushing like the king, jack, 10, 7 single suit type stuff. You're slaughtering that portion of range. And so 4-betting folding to a 5-bet is completely fine in this spot.
Okay, nice.
I think folding is the worst option.
Right, good to know. Yeah, he ended up having queen 10, 7, 6, 1 suit.
Exactly right, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like you really want to be punishing players that have wide ranges with high pocket pairs. That's the rule. Like you don't waste your high pocket pairs against people who are spewing.
So in this 4-bet pot, out of position, king 10 10, is it going to be a pretty heavy check from out of position because he's going to have very little 10x and button's going to have more 10x here?
He'll have some 10x. But cutoff is going to have their 10x rundown type stuff that they didn't 4-bet.
Right.
Or,
they did 4-bet.
Yeah, they did 4-bet. They're still going to have 10x if they 4-bet. So it's not a heavy check, but it's a like mix.
Yep.
Like it's a pretty solid mix. And when we do bet on this board texture, we're betting very small. We're not using like a full pot sizing. This is one of those lockdown board textures where if we are continuing, we want to bet small. Ace ace king 4, get wrecked. So this would have been one of those spots where we would 4-bet and then fold to a 5-bet and then feel fine about it.
Cool.
Wouldn't have been a big deal. And because like the button's not always gonna have, the cutoffs are not always gonna have ace ace, and then they fold at a like when you're the 4-better, they have to fold a ton of their range, and then the button just has this like weird garbage that you get to get it in good with.
So just because of that weird sizing pre from button, we're happy to squeeze, get it in against him if he 5-bets?
No, we're folding to the 5-bet.
Okay, cool. I thought it was just
right. I think we're always folding to the 5-bet.
Yep.
What that sizing allows us to do is open up our hand as a 4-bet.
So 13, 32, jack, 9, 6, 6. Okay, so I am big blind here. I defend.
Seems fine.
Check, turn.
Seems fine.
And what's going through my mind here is, wow, how many straights does he have here? Isn't he going to start betting them at some point on the turn? That's my main thoughts here, and if I could actually bluff this one.
Not a bad river to bluff. You need at least one of the cards on the board to block their 2-pair combinations. That we want to block queen jack, or is like a really important thing. But I think that you're right in that people are just never gonna have a straight here, and so you're probably fine betting. Having 2 6s is kind of meh because that's what we want our opponent to have.
Yeah.
We want our opponent to have those 2 6s in the spot. Whereas if we have like jack 9 8, that's much better like Jack 10 9 8 we can use as a bet, because maybe that might be a little too good to bet with, just because we probably win against it showdown sometimes. This combination, I think it's fine to bet, and if you are betting, you're using a full pot sizing. There's no like small sizing.
Just
here.
punish ace jack ace 10. I end up checking and winning.
Because you're a champion.
Yeah.
And that's why I was saying that the Jack 10 might be a little too like in a check scenario, it might be too good to be bluffing with. So your hand is I like the call out here. Your hand's probably towards the bottom of the towards the top of your bluffing range in terms of the absolute value.
Okay, so like I was saying to you earlier, I'm still not well versed in small blind spots, so I didn't know what my limp raising range looks like versus my just potting range here. I know with aces we want to limp raise like 2/3 of them. I think the single suited aces, but I still wasn't sure how that really plays in PLO 100, how much limping there is in general in the blinds. So I'm just playing pretty much a pot strategy here.
Not a ton. Yeah, you get more into limps at the more conservative rake structures, but at low stakes you don't need to be playing a huge limping range. And if you are, it's really just like the nutted ace x and the nutted like ace queen jack 10 double type stuff. But like king 8-3 single is a perfect hand to be raising with. And for a lot of lower stakes players, I don't even think about building like a limp raising range needs to be much of a thing, just because of the rake structure, because you should just be folding a ton in the small blind. You should be folding, like not even limping.
Okay, so I flopped some like really poor robust equity here. I got kings, but I think a check is a good way to start because of that.
Agree.
So goes check. And I guess the problem is when I unblock all the pairs on the flop is every turn can give him 2 pair, like pretty much. So this is where it gets really tricky for me. I'm like, there's a lot of draws out there I want to get value, but I also don't want to bloat the pot with a single pair here on like infinite horrible rivers. So that was my reason for checking again.
That's very correct. We also have the 8 of spades, which blocks a lot of their draw continues. So that's a key card to have. But we have the 3 of clubs, which is really good. Like in this spot, you want to have the 3 of clubs, because you don't want them to have the 3 of clubs. You want them to be able, like, I think that in this specific spot, you're going to get called by a lot of 1-pair type stuff. And so I probably am playing a half pot sizing on this turn and just folding to a raise.
Interesting. All right.
So this actually is a slightly exploitable adjustment that I make it lower stakes that I think a lot of players can benefit from. One of the biggest reasons that we wouldn't play a turn bet here with this combination is because we're going to be forced to fold if our opponent is playing appropriately with enough bluff raises. Players aren't finding enough bluff raises in this spot at like PLO 100. As we go higher and higher, I think that checking becomes a much more enticing option with this combination. But at this stake level, our opponents are just not bluff raising at a high enough frequency. And when your opponents aren't gating your aggression, you get to play a little more aggressive with your medium strength hands. And so you actually get to get some value here. And one of the nice things is that we have king specifically, and so we block the outs for jack 10, which is really good. When the board pairs, we're usually pretty stoked because they didn't raise the turn, and so it's likely that we have the best hand against a queen x combination. We can get value from those hands. We also want to have some king in our river like block betting range. Let's say that we bet half pot on the turn, our opponent calls, the river is like the 6 of clubs. We want to have some king in our block betting range to be able to bluff for that sizing with all of our misdraws. And so that's why you want to put a couple kings in your turn betting range, is so that by the time you get to the river, you now have a balanced blocking range to support bluffs in that portion of range for a smaller sizing.
Of course.
Yeah, and that's a little, that's a little going hard, which I understand if not everyone wants to implement that, but that's what I'm thinking about if I am betting king on this turn here.
And do you like the sizing from imposition? Is he allowed to do much potting here?
Yeah. When the turn brings extra dynamicism, you're allowed to size up. So on the 6 of spades, it adds a straight draw and a second flush. It adds multiple straight draws and a second flush draw, and so you are allowed to use a full pot sizing. I think it's completely fine.
But for out of position, we're also sticking with mainly a big size, but some small size for half pot.
As out of position, I'm not using as many large sizes, but I am sizing up my small sizing. So if this is a less dynamic turn, I generally will use a like bet 33 or bet 100 sizing. But now that there's more dynamicism, I'm using a bet 50 or a bet 100 sizing. And on this one, I'm probably using a bet 50.
Okay. So the river bricks out, and
Great.
I'm blocking 5-3.
River.
And it just seems like a
Yeah,
perfect check calling end, right? Even I really debated it.
Yeah. This is the
Oh,
nut
thank
check.
good. I hate having the 8 of spades,
if you're
but
not-
I love hearing that.
Yeah, no. I mean, having the 8 of spades sucks, but we're still calling the river here. I'm not folding this hand. They could have like 6-7x, 5-6x, like
Yeah.
5-7x, 9-10x, 9-check-x. Like you just gotta call. Queen 6, unlucky, but I think that it's fine.
Very
I
happy
think
to hear
it's
that.
completely fine. Yeah.
Okay. Then we have the Jack 10-4. Button open. Kind of like at the bottom, but good enough, right? I mean, like our Jack 10x is like pretty much always open. Unless we have Jack 10x rainbow, then we probably fold.
So even some Jack 10x rainbow are raising as long as there's connectivity. Like Jack 10-6 rainbow, I think opens. Or maybe 6 is the cutoff, but Jack 10-7 opens. Jack 10-5 is probably your like I'd be pretty confident with that as a fold. For rainbow combinations. Any suit Jack 10 is opening. Most Jack X's are opening.
So on this flop, I prefer checking because I have a weak flush draw. I unblock top pair. Can't really handle a check raise. So my initial thoughts.
Love it. Great. A really good way to think about your c-betting ranges is: do you have a ton of robust equity? Do you have no equity? Do you have blockers? Does your hand play well against a check raise? You don't have a ton of robust equity. You don't have a very weak hand. Your hand doesn't play well against a check raise, and you love seeing turns. And so I think that's a very good checking combination.
Yep. And on the turn here, I don't see much point in betting. Like if I had a hand like Jack 9-4, maybe I'd bet. But since I'm blocking the tens, a better check, I think.
Even Jack 6 is probably because then we unblock 8-9 as well, and we really want our opponent to have 8-9 because then if we hit a jack, they make a straight. It's really good. But the Jack 10, I'm gonna guess, is heavily leading check because the 10x would be the portion of range like that we're really caring about. And so your first thought is correct in that Jack 9 is probably a bet, but with mix depending on the third card. And then if we have cards that don't interact with the 10-9 or 8, those are the combinations that are going to be always betting.
Okay. And river bricks, he bets a third, and I have an easy call.
Snap, yeah.
And ace, four.
Queens, good value bet.
Yeah, that was nice.
And I like their sizing as well. It's a good sizing.
Do you think my calling range is really affected if he even pots it here? Like it bricks out completely. How much 10x am I folding here to a pot size bet?
You should actually be folding a decent amount because your opponent has check raises still, and so they have the net advantage.
Okay.
Remember, when they check flop and check turn, they have king x, whereas you very rarely have king x. And so you're the capped one; they're uncapped. They get to play a large sizing. They get to beat you up and force you to fold.
Of course. So where are my double delay bets coming from?
Your double delay bets are coming from queen, jack. Some of your worst ace x, but a lot ace x. Maybe ace 10, probably ace 10 jack.
Yep.
But a lot of those are c-betting the flop, and so they're going to be less. It's going to be more sparse by the time you get to the river. And so it's going to be queens, jacks that don't interact with the 10.
Cool. Are
going to be a lot of your betting range by the time you get to the river for value. Cool. While you're looking, chat, any questions on things we've been talking about so far? We've gone through a couple hands.
I'll get some water. Be right back.
Yeah. Pat got some water. He's providing you all so much value. Man got his wisdom teeth pulled out. Still showing up to do streams for you. But yeah, any questions you have, shoot them over. For those of you who don't know, my name is Dylan Weisman. I am one of the lead Polylimit Omaha instructors for UpswingPoker.com, where Pav and myself both post training content. This is one of those I give away too much free information on stream scenarios. Doesn't happen often, but I like doing it with Pav because he's a phenomenal student. What about bluff raising the river on the last hand when we river the 4? The 4 is not important for raising ever. We don't care about underfulls because underfulls aren't even raising at 100% frequency because our opponent is uncapped. And so if our opponent pots the river and we have pocket fours, I'm just flatting. I'm not even raising it. You really, really need to care about that top card and who has the most of the top card in their range, because that's what gates your raising frequencies. Chicago Joey Poker says, a true god. Pav is a true god. Agree. Where are the biggest edges in 6x PLO right now? That's a very good question. Pre-flop is where the biggest edges are, especially in online low-stakes games. Players do not understand how to interact with the rake very well. They're playing too wide of ranges, and because they're playing too wide of ranges, that means that they are not that they're putting themselves in situations where their hands are just out-pipped. They don't have enough robust equity. They have to fold too much to aggression, and so the biggest edges can be found just by having a really, really solid pre-flop game. And I stress that to all of my students and everyone who learns from me. What have you learned recently that you had very wrong but would score 100% true? I actually have one for you. I was misplaying multi-way pots as the middle player. I was playing it at way too heavy of a checking frequency. Because I'd run a couple sims that it's hard to run multi-way sims, so you can't get a lot of volume in with them. But the general thing that I found from them was that when you're the middle position player, which means that like under the gun opens, we flat the cutoff, and then the big blind or the button calls, so we're in that squeeze spot, that we never get to bet was my thought process. Because generally speaking, ranges are very competitive. We're out of position. Therefore, we don't get a lot of bets in a multi-way scenario, and that's not true. You just have to know what portion of your you just have to be very precise. You have to know if you are the flatter in that three-way scenario, what are the board textures where you are more dense in the nutted portion of range, and then that's where you get to start to get some betting volume, both as a bluff and with our value portion of range. And that was something that was just more like I wasn't doing anything wrong per se by checking as an overall strategy because I'm not losing a ton of game value, but I even had the theory incorrect in that I just thought that it wasn't a big portion of the game tree to be building a betting range there, but it's just because I was bad and hadn't done enough studying. And so that was something that I learned recently. Great question.
It was a good question.
Yeah. You have an edge in short stack in PLO. Why do people play 100 big blinds deep? They're used to 100 BB ranges. Yes, playing a smaller stack size does give you an advantage, but you also lose out on the advantage of being able to stack people who are bad. And so I think what a lot of the best players in the world are doing nowadays is they're buying in for like 50 bigs and then just not hidden running. They're just playing at every stack depth and being better at every stack depth. And that's, I think, where you make the most money. It's not just being really good at playing short stack, but being good at playing like 40 bigs, 60 bigs, 80 bigs, 100 bigs, and really putting in work at all those levels, which is very hard to do, by the way. Only the best players in the world that I know of have put this much thought into opening ranges at the different stack depths. But that, like, if you're trying to be a god, that's what you have to do. Yep.
Has studying PLO with Dr. GTO helped Pav out in his no limit MTT game? Probably not, because the games are so different. It's tough to like really take anything away from it and be like, all right, I can use that no limit.
Would you say that your understanding of game theory has gotten a little better from the PLO stuff, or do you not think about them? Are they just so different that it's hard to find the overlap?
You know what, maybe, but it's really tough to like point out anything specific right now. But possibly, because like the more I watch your PLO content and Upswing, the more I'm convinced that PLO players, like the best PLO players, are just smarter than the best no limit players. Because like, I really believe that. Like this, like 270,000 combinations. Like, there's no such thing as a range bet on all boards because you're using your side cards only. So like everything changes, and it's like unbelievably complex to balance in PLO versus balancing a no limit.
Yeah, and no limit. So I think that that's true until you get to like the top parts of no limit, because then the best players are, for every board texture, understanding exactly how they're supposed to randomize each sizing, right? They know that they're supposed to go like 73 bet 27 check to each of their sizings, right? At the highest stakes. And at that point, I think it's there's like that's where the true depth of a game, like for example, Heads Up No Limit, really comes in. Even though the game tree is smaller, there's you can get that same level of granularity. And like for example, the best PLO players in the world, if you were a Monker and like the perfect solver, you're using those sidecards, and then you're even still mixing. But us humans, we ain't got that in us, and so we just build heuristics using our sidecards to be able to effectively play the game in a way that actually works. I like this comment. Chicago Joy Poker, you never miss a GTO spot like this study session. That's what happens when you're in the lab, right? It's like if you're out there hustling, you don't miss the good spots. And that's something that I've learned not just in poker, but as a like entrepreneur and as a professional. One of the most important things is to be able to recognize what a good spot is. And I'm sure Pav can attest to this. It's like when you see that something makes sense logically and then it's a good spot, you jam it, even if it's something that is like outside of your range or you're a little bit uncomfortable with. Because the good spots are the ones that have not only the most immediate expected value, but also the highest probability to like push you further in whatever you're trying to get better at, like to push you towards your definition of success. And the most successful people, for their definition of success that I've found, they've really like they have a true skill for finding good spots. And so it makes sense that Joey's gonna like show up for all the good spots because that's what makes him successful. He sees where they are. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, Pav?
No, I agree. I mean, he's talking about crypto as well. It's making me laugh. So.
Joey's talking about crypto.
That's a good spot for him.
Spot equal crypto. I'm jamming right now. Yeah, my net worth's already way too into. I can't jam anymore. Like, I have to not do that. But that's fine. That's why we got the diversification. We make content for the people, pay our rent.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. We can move on though.
All right. So in this big blind spot, I'm always folding the ace four deuce, but I was going to ask if we are always completing the rainbow like ace 5-4-3 or ace 4-3 deuce rainbow. Do we need to continue with a nut suit here?
Yeah, that's the answer.
Okay.
You don't, and this is a big thing that translates over to live PLO too. Multi-ways, if you want to play ace rag, you literally are only allowed to do it with the nut suit. Perfect. Because you're already giving up on the ability to like straight over straight people or set over set people. And so you need to find a way to create the nuts in a multi-way spot because you have to have the nut flush draw. That's just it.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I did fold here. 23-10. We have ace king 4. Okay. So I ISO the limper.
Oh, I saw this one live. This one was tough.
Yeah. Bits awkward. So yeah, I just want to initially check because I have pretty weak robust equity, no heart in my hand. Yeah. I guess like ace king ace of hearts is kind of interesting.
Yes, because then we can turn our hand into a bluff.
Yep. Okay.
On heart turns. But even this is one of those spots where I just talked about one of my big leaks, which was not betting enough multi-ways. It was still pretty grounded in fact, which is that you don't get to bet a lot multi-ways. That's just a true statement because there are two ranges that you're competing with, and that's a lot of hold'em combinations. And I know this shows up in hold'em too, whereas multi-ways you have to be a little more precise in which hands you're deciding to continue with. Really shows up in PLO, especially in this scenario where you have like a queen 9-4 board that just smacks both players' ranges super hard. And so unless I have a really, really robust hand, I'm going to be playing a check here. Like if I have aces nut flush draw, that's a good hand to bet with, or like ace jack 10 or pocket queens. But my aces with one heart, I even like checking those combinations back because if I have, let's say, ace jack 7-4, ace high suit, I'm actually checking that flop back with my nut flush draw so that I can have some nut flushes in my flop check back range and then find turn raises, which is why I'm probably not going to be betting my aces with only one heart because that's like I'm going to find my bluffs to balance my nut flushes that I check back with on the flop using that portion of my range. Mm-hmm. Whereas with the ace high flush draw, like the ace high flush draws on the flop that also have ace, those are the ones I can just start to bet because I have enough equity with that pair of aces on top of the flush draw.
Okay, what's the thinnest hand you're betting for value on the flop that doesn't contain a flush draw? Like ace king. I need to like. Let's say we have ace king queen 4.
Oh man, that's tough.
Ace king queen 4. no flush draw. Are we happy with betting that
No.
one?
No, we're not. The weakest hand that we're betting that doesn't contain a flush draw would be like ace, queen, jack 10, one heart.
Right.
Maybe. Like, it's got to be pretty good. And even that combination, I'm checking back at some frequency. That's such a funny question. There's like, of all the combinations that you could show up with, like, that'd be like, I'm just going to give a real talk answer. That'd be something that I would run, right? Like, I don't have the answer off the top of my head. And so it's like, oh, I wonder what my worst betting combination is with no flush draw here. And then I would throw it in a bunker, type in some questions, and it would spit out an answer. But if I had to guess, it would be a hand that still has really robust equity and blocks the flush and has like a top pair combination.
Okay.
But that's the weakest of our continues. But if we have a set we're continuing, maybe not pocket twos, but pocket queens, pocket nines, those ones are continuing, shit like that.
And if the flop is queen 9 deuce rainbow with this combo, do you like betting more?
No. I still don't like it. Just
really.
You need the pair interaction on the rainbow boards.
Okay.
Like that's what's really, really important. Joey says find someone who loves you as much as Dylan loves Munker. I don't even love Munker that much. Like, I'm not even as deep as some other people are. I just like getting the right answer, especially for a game where I play it for a lot of money. Like, you just gotta know the answer.
I think some of my favorite videos of the Advanced Mastery were you and Dylan running ICM spots in Monka of, I believe, I think it was the 50K in Melbourne, or maybe
it was that was the 25K in Melbourne. Me and Crit. Those are some of my favorite videos that I've ever made.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. Just showing like which ace combos you want to be folding the button, which ones you can limp, and why you don't want to raise. Like, that was a real eye opener.
That was when I was starting to really get into PLO MTTs, because I hadn't actually had access to the ICM bunker feature. And then Chris was like, oh, my homie has all the ranges for this. I'm like, let's smash it.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to just run as many sims as I can with this. Because now when I show up to, I think, any PLO tournament on the planet Earth, I would feel comfortable being a favorite. Because so many people haven't done that work for the different stack sizes and really understanding the ICM interactions and just how nasty the ICM vacuums are. It's a huge eye opener. Plus, doing it with someone like Chris, who isn't a tournament specialist, but is like a PLO and bunker specialist, he just has such a solid intuition into the game that he asks really good questions. I loved those. Like, I loved making those videos. They felt so good.
They were good. And it was like, you know, when you guys started doing videos together as duos, like, that was really enjoyable. Because at the start you guys just had like single videos.
Yeah, we have a new video coming out in our live PLO dominance course where it's us going over the live at the bike hands together, and they are that's some good shit also.
Nice.
That's some good content. Anyway, move on to the turn.
Okay, so the turn is like probably like not good for us. It's probably more bad than it is good for us, right? Because they're going to have all the turn 2 pairs, and I mean, I guess we don't really like any turn card. I guess we like an 8 and lower with no flush completer. A king's not even that great, but we don't really like this card, right? Unless we're like blocking 2 pairs. I mean, apart from having the ace, like it's not that good, right?
We like this card. We don't love it, but we like it. The reason being that we are going to be checking back ace queen combinations.
Right.
Like ace king queen plays a pretty heavy check back with no flush draw. We have all of our aces that have, like, if I have ace 7-4 diamond, like single suit diamonds with no heart in it, I'm not c-betting this board. And we were the initial raiser, so we are still the most ace dense.
Of course.
And ace plays a mix on this flop, and so we actually still do pretty well on the ace. And specifically with our hand, this is actually I remember watching this in real time, and I was thinking about it before coming on. I think I'm going to be finding a bet here. The reason being that we actually are doing well against our opponent's ace-x combinations, because we have ace-king-king, which means they're less likely to be chopping with us and more likely to have like ace-jack, ace-10, ace-9, which is not good for us. But like I think one opponent, I won't give a spoiler, but like we actually can generate value here, and we should be playing a bet at a relatively high frequency because we're winning with ace-queen, and then we're winning with ace-ace as portion of range. And this is also one of those spots where, generally speaking, when we check back the flop, we don't get to play a large turn sizing. But the ace is actually so significant in our range that you could actually consider it a board texture change and play a size up to 3/4, which is really, really good for our specific combination because we just get to fold out a ton of garbage. We get to fold out like bear jack 10 or like a queen with nothing else and get called by some worse ace-x. So this would be one of those spots where it would be close to what I'd call a range bet. I would love to have like ace king 10 versus ace king king, and maybe that like this would be a spot where I don't know I don't know if this specific combination is a bet, but I do know that I am playing a relatively large betting frequency here, and I do feel comfortable with this. Like if I had bare ace king, I might just check it because I'm not getting because it's more likely someone's just chopping with me. But ace king king makes it less likely that we're actually getting chopped with. And so therefore our opponent are going to have worse ace x combinations when they do call.
Okay, and you're just happy to bet fold this combo?
Oh, love it.
Yep.
Love bet folding. Love bet folding here.
Okay.
That's one of the things that people are really scared of is bet folding.
Yeah.
It's just completely fine. Like it's one of those spots, like in PLO specifically, you just need to have high aggression frequencies so that you can be capitalizing on getting rid of equity from your opponent's hand. Because they always have four cards, therefore they always have enough equity. So you just need to find aggression as much as you can to push out that equity from your opponent. It's also why people who are bad get destroyed is because they don't find enough check raises, which we talked about earlier on stream. The worst players, they don't find, like if I'm here and I have like ace 3, 4, 5 as the big blind, I am check raising the shit out of this turn.
Yeah,
That is
I was just gonna say,
wonderful
is a perfect check raising hand for small blind gonna be Queen Jack 10 2 hearts?
Queen. No, that's a good check calling hand because we don't block the ace.
Okay, right.
If we
of
don't
course.
have an ace in our if we don't have an ace in our hand and our opponent's betting and they have the ace advantage, we don't get to play a check raise.
Okay.
Whereas if we have a hand like ace 3, 4, 5,
Right.
now we block the ace x
Beautiful.
from our opponent's range. Yeah, that's much better to find bluffs with.
Okay. Yeah, I think why some opponents, like, I think some players like myself might find it hard to bet fold this turn is because of the lack of understanding with how much ace-x, like, aces are checking back the flop with. You have that part of your range that protects you.
Yeah, exactly. It's because there's so many aces, right?
Yep.
Ace 10 3 single suit. Like, there's so many. 2.6% I think of all pre-flop hands are ace, and then that gets even more dialed in when you start to raise, right?
Yep.
So like 2 points, like so that's a lot of combinations
Yeah.
that you get to put into different places.
Okay, so we check back turn.
Check back turn. This is a
And-
very good river card for us.
Okay, wait, did I end up
Yeah.
checking this one?
You did.
Yeah,
You did
because
check
I was
this
just
one.
unsure. I was like, are they still checking the same range on the river as they were on the turn to check raise? I was unsure into two ranges.
It's the same thing. Ace king king means that we can get value from worse ace x, like ace 4 5 6,
Yeah.
like that. For example, if I bet if we bet the turn, and like our the big blind literally has one of the best possible check raising hands, ace 4 5 6, and because it's so unlikely that you get bet 3-bet when you have ace 4 5 6, even if your opponent has ace queen. Like if I have ace queen rainbow, no backup, that hand's just calling. So I still get to realize the equity of my straight draw and my flush draw. Like it's so unlikely that you're getting, and I didn't see bet the flop, so I don't have pocket queens or pocket nines pretty much ever. I block ace ace, and so I get to really put aggression on your specific hand, right? My opponent has ace king 10, ace king jack, ace king king, and they bet the turn. I want to be putting aggression on that portion of my opponent's range, and ace 4 5 6 is just with the nut suit is such a good hand to find a turn check raise with. And then if your opponent does somehow rip because they have ace ace, we fold, and who cares?
Yep.
But it's going to happen so infrequently, given our blockers and the way the hand plays out, that you really got to push that equity.
Very well said. King 10 8 4. Okay, so I open button, big blind defends, and have a nut suit with a pair. I think I want to mix two sizes on this board, small and big, so like 33 and 100. I don't think there's much half pot betting, is there, the flush draw?
So, generally speaking, for all of us humans, when it comes to the flop, unless it's a 3-bet pot, we use a one-sizing strategy. Single raise pots, we use a one-sizing strategy.
Wow.
And that actually is in the course, in the Advanced PLO Mastery course. That's kind of what we preach. Just because you don't really need to have multiple sizings in a single raise pot. The game tree is still so wide you don't really get a lot of game value by splitting your range here. It's super complex to do that at this, because you're so deep that in order to really maximize on splitting your range here, you'd have to know how to play the rest of the nodes going all the way down the game tree. And so I'm just playing a single sizing, and I bet half pot. It's like ace. It's a dynamic unpaired board. We bet 3/4 or half pot. The ace high dynamic unpaired boards, I bet half, and then the non-ace high ones, I bet 2/3. And that's just those are my sizings.
Let's see what I go for here. I should probably adjust the custom sizes here.
Like, yeah, that's too. Even if we have aces, that's not good because our opponent has like 7, 9, 10, and they're continuing for too small of a sizing.
So on this turn, we improve to 2 pair, but straights get there.
Yep.
And that's not the hands we're going on. I decided to check for that reason.
Checking is great. We don't want to get check raised. We win at showdown. We don't block any of the straight stuff. Great. That's a perfect hand to check with. Because we're Pav and we're champions, we over the nuts.
Yep. And face a 2/3 sizing.
Yeah, 2/3 isn't a sizing that exists. This is one of those spots where we play a like bet 33 or bet 100.
Yep.
As the out of position player.
And are we happy with any other sizing that isn't pot?
Never.
Okay.
We have the pot button.
Yeah.
That is our only.
We also don't block the
sizing.
straights, which is nice.
Yeah, and like so their hand is a great bet 33 call. Like they can just bet 33 and call when if they have the jack high flush, I believe. Yeah, bet 33 call with that combination. We block a pair. We block the straights. Right? Oh no, we don't block the straights. So we don't have a 7 No, I guess no, we don't. We don't have an ace in our hand.
Nope.
We just want to bet small, get called by the straights, get called by 2 pairs, and then call a raise as well because we have the jack high flush. And it's like a very, very good hand to bet. But we want to bet small so when we do get raised, we're not being punished as much. Whereas if I have the king high flush or the queen high flush, those are the ones that, like, some of my queen high flushes are going to a small betting range, just depending on side cards and what we're blocking. And then some of my king high flushes are going to a small betting range, but very few. The majority of them are just going into my big betting range.
Okay, beautiful. And the other hand during this one was king, king, queen, jack.
Chicago Joey. Take a shot every time a pro says this isn't a sizing here. Yeah, Joey, it's because we fucking study. It's because we know what exists. Like, you can, okay, let me rephrase that. You can do whatever you want. This could be a sizing there. You can create a range that's bet 2/3 on the river. That's allowed. Like, we don't kink shame. You're just making less money by doing it. Like that's just how it is.
Kink shame. Okay, so this is hijack, button, small blind, I squeezed, and I think my question was, it's a little bit more than one, the SPR. I blocked the flush draws, I got top pair and over pair. Do I ever like maybe a half pot over a pot size bet here?
So given what we talked about earlier, what do you think?
I probably just want to put as much money in because it's such a dynamic board.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, and like a bet folding just doesn't seem ideal when this guy has 30 blinds behind anyway.
No.
He's like folding nothing. This guy's getting an even better price as well. Yeah, like if I just bet 30 as well, this guy is like calling everything, so this guy gets an even better price. So I guess.
Yeah, click the pop button. One of the best maxims for PLO. How much equity does my hand have, and how much equity is it removing from my opponent's range? It has equity because it has pocket kings, really good. And then the jack both adds equity and removes because the jack allows us to make trips with the jack, and queen jack is good for us. Let's say if we're against jack 7. It also removes the probability of our opponent having 2 pair, right? And then we also have the heart blocked, which is really good, removing outs if our opponent doesn't have that flush draw. So this is a super good hand to just click the pop button with. And we never play a smaller sizing, as we said. We're close to SPR 1. So it's around SPR like 1.8 to 2 that you start to maybe build in a smaller sizing, just because if you bet half pot on the flop at SPR 2, now you have 1 SPR on the turn. It makes it a 2 sizing game.
Yep.
But there's really no sizing we can use here that makes sense against the equity of everyone's range to bet small. And so we just got to click the pop button.
Beautiful. Ace, king, queen, 10.
Some people saying that this doesn't feel good to get it in with. I'm stoked to get this one in.
Yeah,
actually.
I'm totally fine with that.
Like I have pocket kings. I block a flush draw. I block top pair. They're just gonna fold a ton. I love clicking the pot button there, and I don't even think twice. Which is a very standard get in. It's one of those. A lot of players are more used to winning when they go all in. that are newer to PLO. It's like, oh, I went all in. I'm gonna win more often because that's what I'm used to in Hold'em. That's just that they need it. You got that 60% favorite. You're taking that all day,
Yeah.
but you are still losing 40% of the time. That's just how it be.
You just take the marginal equity in PLO. It's what you get.
Oh, yeah, and you force folds is the biggest thing. Make them fold their equity away. That's the biggest thing. This was a toughie.
Yeah, because there's no nut suit here as well, and I guess like maybe Ace King Queen Jack no nut suit could be a better hand to pot here. Maybe just flat with this one.
Yeah, I think I flat this.
Yeah,
it's weird at this rake structure. Maybe we can check the matrix really quickly. I didn't look this up. So I actually don't think that we can look up the multi-way because we're not squeezing. Big blind. I don't know, big blind squeeze under the gun.
it's small blind button hijack.
Small. Yeah, I don't think that we can do that with the matrix. I don't have Monk on this computer. But yeah, it's tough without the nut suit. So, but it's also like not that bad because not having the nut suit means that we are playing at a lower SPR. So, I don't know. It's close. I don't have the correct answer here. Ace, King, Queen, Jack. I think that you're fine just like slapping the pop button. With Ace High suit, I think we're fine slapping the pop button.
Yeah.
What I didn't love is your flop play. I'm going to be honest with you. And I remember you were talking about it on stream, where you were saying that like our opponents could have sets and they can have like 7-8 and stuff like that. All like 7-8-9, all that's true. We're fine with them having 7-8-9.
Yep.
We're fine with them having wraps. We don't care. The only thing we care about is that they have sets and we block top set, which is the most likely one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so, with all that being said, I'm not, as the small blind 3-better, I don't get to play a large c-betting range on this board. Just because I don't have very many king XXs that I'm 3-betting from the small blind, and I don't have very many, like, I'd have to have specifically 8-9-10 jack, or 7-8-9-10,
Yep.
double suited. And so we are not doing very well on this board against an open, a flat, and against an open, a flat, both of those flatting again to a 3-bet. So I don't get to play a c-betting range on this board. So I like the check. I think you start with the check here. If I remember correctly.
We're also 126 blinds, like effective post flop. So I figured, I guess button has some wider calls as well. Like has some good
it's
wraps
SPR3.
around this board. Yeah.
It's
SPR3. Yeah.
And they bet they bet whatever 3/4. I'm just ripping this. We need to have a check raising range here.
Yep.
And you kind of ran into it where you call the turn comes to 9 and you have to fold, and it just feels horrid. And it's kind of one of those spots where
No, I think the turn bricks, and my thought process was, what does he continue on the turn on an absolute brick when I check call flop? Aren't they just shutting down a bunch? That was my thought
because
process.
they think they're not shutting down a bunch because they think you have just like ace XX.
Yep.
And so they're going to be potting to force indifference from that. If they're good, they're potting to force indifference from that portion of range. Like if I have 7-8-9 and my opponent just check calls the flop and the turn's a 2, I'm ripping the turn.
Mm-hmm.
Every time to make aces hate their lives. But yeah, it's tough though. This is not. I don't think calling is horrid. I think folding is bad, and I think check ripping is probably best.
Okay.
If I had to guess. One of the best things also is that they have bet folds. They can bet fold this flop. That is the thing. But maybe not a PL 100.
What would a bet folding range look like in position on the flop? Like 7-8-9 is never bet folding.
No, it's not. But if we have like 8-8-10-10.
Oh, of course.
8-8 Jack, like those are like those combinations are combinations people really don't think, like, because they don't show up too often. But you have to, like, the double pair hands are really bluffy. Those are really good hands to bluff with, because they block straights, they turn sets, they turn overfulls. Like that portion of range, yeah. The three is not a brick. Like the 3 brings a straight, So 4-5 gets there.
Yeah, I guess I just it's probably a no limit mindset. Like he has like fuck all 5-4 and he's calling range here, but it's PLO, of course he does. He can have like a bunch of 5-4 double suited.
There's someone that asks call turn rip call flop rip turn. That's one of those things where it's like you're just calling to find a good turn card, and that's just not really a thing in modern poker. Maybe, but I don't have it built into my game. I don't want to say it doesn't exist or that you can't do it. I just wouldn't know how to do it.
Okay, so this is what do we?
So you called the turn here, and it hurt my heart, Pav.
You like the shove?
Oh yeah. Rip it. We're like a favorite against Jack 10. We get them to fold Jack 6, Jack 3. We block that stuff. We get it in good against like King Queen 10, King Queen 8 9. We get it in good a ton. Just for all of it. We don't have the nut flush draw, so it's not even as if we're like trying to like you river a flush here and have to check it.
Yeah.
Like that sucks. Like, let's use the equity of that.
I think in game here I'm thinking I don't have the nut or second nut suit, so if they have King Jack or Ace Jack with a flush draw, it's terrible for me. So I'd rather get in like a Queen High. Go on.
They have King Jack with a flush draw. We have the best hand with Ace Jack.
Oh yeah, of course.
We just have the best. We have the nut Jack as well.
Yeah.
If they happen to have Ace Jack with nut flush draw, yeah, you're fucked. But like that doesn't happen often, and we still have a full wrap.
Okay, that's really good to know. I just saw it as like, I mean, I got a wrap. I just saw it as like one pair, third nut flush draw. Let's not go crazy here. But no.
Yeah, we also make the nuts on the ace, the king, the queen, or the 9.
Yeah, I gotta like really go into pro poker tools and really like remind myself that this hand has so much fucking equity against Jack 10 XX.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's killing it. Even on the turn, it's killing. And we block Jack 10 because we have a Jack in our hand.
Yep.
And so it's like, yeah, against the set we're doing like 60-40. It's not even a huge deal.
Are you at least happy with the flop check back here?
Yes. Flop check back. No, so this is a great
river check back. Sorry, the river check back, not the flop check back. Flop, so flop I think is standard.
I love. But the reason why we check back the flop is like the Jack of Spades is the turn card we're praying for. So that when someone bets into us, we just get to click the pop button in their face.
Mm-hmm.
River's very close. I'm fine with the check because we block so much of the range we want to be called by. We block the straight. We don't have the nut flush. We have the queen and the Jack of diamonds, and so like our queen high flush doesn't even have a rank advantage against the rank below it. I am probably checking this one back.
Beautiful.
But that's why. But I don't want to, right? We rivered a really
we want to get money on the turn.
Else, that means that we could have used this equity somewhere else in the hand. I think.
It's a big takeaway.
Yeah. Like they have one of the few combinations, even that combination, like Jack 10, 8, 9, that can't even call us. So yeah, just check back.
What do you think about his turn barrel with Jack 10, 8, 9? You like it?
I like it. Top two pair straight draw. Yeah, completely fine.
Okay, ace, 8, 7.
Someone says, really, you're checking when they check to you? The answer is yes, because you need to think about what their calling range is. Are people calling the turn with low flush draws? They shouldn't be, right? Like they shouldn't have 10 high flush draws and 9 high flush draws in their range too often unless it has 2 pair attached to it. And that lowers the amount of combinations. And we block the hands that we want to be called by. We block the king, the queen,
block the
jack, the 10, like the jack, all the stuff that we want to be called by. And also the ace high flush is not going to bet. The ace high flush is going to check raise at some frequency. King high flush might bet, but only to a half pot sizing. And so it's like, I'm betting a lot of my queen high flushes, but I'm not betting all of them. And I don't think it's the need to check back the river here with our specific combination because we just block so much of our opponent's range that we want that should be calling us or that we want to call us.
Okay, so we get the aces 8-7. Squeeze it and get a pretty shit flop.
Very shit flop.
So like a check to start with, and it gets really interesting on the turn. So turn, I just want to check again because I'm just dead to so much shit that checks. But he checks back all of his 10x pretty much, or a lot of it at least.
He checks back a lot of it, but also like 10-8-9 is a great hand to bet the flop with. It's a bluff.
Yeah, to put my hand in a bin on the turn or the river.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think you're underestimating how many 10x's they actually check back on the flop, because those are really good hands that can bet the flop and then fold to a check raise. There's not a ton of equity. And they also raise under the gun. And so their 10s, when they do have them, would be more connected. So like a Jack 10 type hand. So it'd have to be some weird like king 10-9 something that they check back the flop, but even that combination is going to be betting because they want to force indifference from ace-ace and shit like that.
But we have 8-7 as well, so isn't that going to be... That's not good, right? He's going to be lean towards having more king 10, queen 10, ace 10 because we have the 8 and the 7.
It also just blocks them from having 10s generally because we block 7, 8, 9, 10 and like 7, 8, jack 10.
Right.
And so it's kind of more break even, the 7 and the 8 here. I'd say that it probably isn't that huge of a deal. I'm betting this turn just to get value from pocket. Like we don't have a king or a queen in our hand. So let's let's like bet 40, and if we have like ace 8 9 double suited shit like that we didn't see bet the flop with, have a really good bluffing sizing, and then start to get value from pocket kings and pocket queens.
Yeah, that's pretty like a no limit mindset I'm bringing into my game there. Like that didn't even come to my mind on the turn. I was like, oh, like I think subconsciously I'm just always thinking queens and kings, like just forward betting pre a bunch here, like so I'm not even thinking about getting value from that in the turn. I'm just worried about him having 10x.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So river, flush completer, not a club in my hand, kind of confused. So we blunder the turn. River's just weird now.
We blunder the turn. I love it. We should bring that into poker. That's a really good chess term that we should bring into poker. I like it. They bet half pot. We hate our fucking life. They didn't bet the flop or the turn with their clubs, which seems so unlikely. Right? Like how? I mean, it's PLO 100, so maybe that's happening. But at in theory land, you should be finding bluffs on the flop or the turn with your flush draws.
Yep.
When your opponent checks.
Yeah, when I think about that, I think it's a bad fold then.
Yeah, I'm probably just clicking call. I just...
Yep.
They're going to be bluffing at some frequency. But yeah, not an easy one. I think the turn is... The river is more indifferent. The turn is more the blunder.
Yeah, I agree. King, queen, queen, 5. Okay, so what happens here?
You see bet the flop. You set it on stream. And then you bet the turn. And I didn't like either of them.
Okay. So wait, this is bottom big blind. Yeah, he's sitting out.
Yeah, button big blind. We see bet flop, which I don't like because we need to have some king queen checkbacks. We want to have the king queen checkbacks that don't block our opponent's straights and stuff.
Yeah.
Like we have no.
Yeah.
We have one backdoor flush draw. We don't have a 10 or an ace or a jack. Or sorry, 10, ace, 9 are the ones that we want to have in our hand to be c betting here. And so there's not a lot of really good turns. So, and the reason why this hand felt so weird is because if I check back the flop, now I have hands in my turn value half potting range.
Right.
And so these high lockdown board textures, you only get to bet your 2-pair combinations when they block the straights, because those are the hands that check raise you at a high frequency. And you don't want to get check raise off of top 2-pair, especially not top 2-pair that doesn't have enough equity to call a check raise.
Mm-hmm.
If I have king queen 10 and I get check raised, yeah, I'm calling.
Yep.
I have king or like king queen and a flush draw. It's like a 2-tone board. Yeah, I can call. But this one is just like, if I get check raised, what am I want a king or a queen, because my opponent's gonna, my opponent has 10-10, they're potting the turn, and I hate my life. And there's only four clean turnouts for me, and so. What I like to do with these less robust top 2-pair combinations is put them into my flop checking range and then use them as my turn value range. And it just makes it so much easier to play. Because you bet the flop and then you bet the turn. It's like, what are you going to get called by on the turn here when you block everything? Right? Yep. It's just so hard for your opponent to continue with worse. And so that's kind of the way that I think about constructing those ranges on these types of board textures.
What about a hand like ace, king, queen, 5? Do you want to check that a little bit more than you would king, queen, 10x?
Ace, king, queen is fine to bet.
Cool. Okay.
Because we block that straight.
Yep. Yeah, I underestimated the the EV and having a 10 or an ace on the flop, and my mindset was, I'll just check back queen, jack, and king, jack, and see about king, queen.
Yeah. So this is one of those spots where, like the newer players at PLO, it's like I use 2 cards in my hand, and then as you get better, it's like, okay, now I think of king, queen as a hand class in and of itself. So it's not just about king queen, but it's about the king queen hand class, and then how do I use my other 2 cards to modulate my frequencies? So this would have been a spot for me that I'm like, okay, I got the king queen hand class. but I got the dumpster fire of side cards, literally. the worst side cards I can have. This isn't very robust. Let's put it into a flop checking range.
Okay, so I bet the flop and I bet the turn.
And the issue with betting the turn here is like, you have to bet half pot, which isn't. And usually when you bet the flop and bet turn, it's always a full pot sizing if the board texture doesn't change, right? Like that's
Yeah,
our GTO
of course,
fundamental.
of course.
And so it just isn't congruent, right? It doesn't follow because we can't bet pot on the turn here. There's no hands that'll call us that we can get value from. And so and for those of you that don't know, generally speaking in PLO, you bet the flop, board texture doesn't change on the turn, you bet full pot. Learn about why and 1,000 reasons more in my advanced course. We don't ever get a half pot sizing on this turn if we're in line. Therefore, I don't want to have to bet my hand on the flop and put me in a weird spot on the turn.
So we got 2 hands left. The king 8-6-5 double suited. Don't want to have a flooding
This
range.
seems a little hyphy to me.
Does
Seems
it?
a little hype.
I know.
Yeah,
I know we want a little bit more
stack up.
connectivity, but I'm like, if I can't play a
uh,
flat, I don't want to fold such a gorgeous hand. Why not just put this one?
Let's ask Sensei. This one I can look up for you.
Nice.
Small blind versus Buddha, king 8 double. I'm gonna guess we're folding. Yep, king 8 5-6 is a fold. The only king 8s that we get to 3-bet are the 7-6 combination because you have the smooth connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's gonna be true. I'll just even look this up right now. That's probably even true for like the queen 8 hand class. It's gonna do this. No, queen 8 hand class doesn't even get a 3-bet. Double suited are all folding. So your cutoff for this like the double suited kind of disconnected stuff is literally king 8-6-7 double.
And what about
So you're
king 9-8 deuce double suited?
that's a fold. It hates the deuce.
Right.
I'm gonna guess for king 9 it's like king 9-8-6.
Mhm.
No, it's king 9-8-7 and king 9-7-6. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Those are your two.
All right. Love starting out with a bet. It's just
That's okay,
so
no, dude.
weird, this flop as well.
Yeah, I love checking. Checking
Cool.
is really good.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't have the ace in our hand. We don't have spades in our hand. We need to have some flop check calls that are pretty strong. So let's put this 2-pair combination in there.
So, I'm trying to think how imposition reacts with a lot of flush draws here, because I'm probably not doing too much check raising with aces and kings. I mainly see betting flops, so maybe he doesn't have as much flush draws as I think, and I should be betting this turn for like, what sizing do I like? Like unblocked top pair, so maybe like I guess I don't mind a pot size bet. I'm blocking top pair and blocking 2 pairs.
We don't get a pot size bet because if we have the king of spades in our hand, we're usually betting the flop.
Okay.
And so if we have the king of spades in our hand and we didn't bet, and we are betting the flop, because we checked the flop, we most likely don't have the king of spades in our hand. Therefore, we don't get to use a full pot sizing. I am checking. Let's say that I have a hand like 8, 9, 10 jack spades. That's a hand that I'm going to be wanting to bet this turn with, but it's going to be a bet 40 when I check the flop, because I've capped myself, including my flush draws, which means I'm never going to have the nut flush draw on the turn here. And so we always think about it, but we don't care about the top pair block here. Whenever you're thinking about hands to kind of adjust your bet frequency, don't think about it in terms of like the pairs and stuff. Think about it relative to whatever the nutted portion of range is. And so the nutted portion of range is flushes. Therefore, we need to think about the nutted portion of range to describe our sizing strategy. And we didn't bet the flop in the 3-bet pot. And the king of spades is a very, very clear c-bet, because it'll either have 2-pair or a flush draw or be able to barrel the turn on spades. So you want to be taking aggression immediately. We've capped ourselves by not taking that. Therefore, that portion of range doesn't exist. We have only the lower flush portion of range. And so we need to just use a smaller sizing in total.
Perfect. I opt to check again because I wasn't totally sure. I don't want to put money in dead.
I love the check.
And
the call is dicey. This is kind of dicey. I'm not gonna lie to you. We have no spades in our hand.
Right.
And they are gonna check back some middling flush draw type stuff, I think. But it's I think for one bet it's really close. Having the 5-6 is helpful-ish. I'd say that this is like close to indifferent, like just right on the cusp.
Yep.
can even do one of those like exploitative things where if your opponent's nitty as fuck, just fold if they're like kind of spewy call kind of a thing.
Well, we're learning a lot here. Poor 3-bet pre. Questionable turn sizing had I wanted to bet. No big sizing there when I cap myself.
Yeah, that's the big lesson. Is when you cap yourself, what does that mean for your whole range?
Yeah.
And why do like and we have to kind of decide why we capped ourselves, and it's because we didn't see bet the flop when specifically it's like ace king X when the king is not a flush draw. This is getting in the weeds, but whatever. Ace king X where the king is not a suit, and it's a two-tone board. If you don't like all of my king of every combination that I have that has a king of spades in it is going to be betting this flop 5-3 bet free, every single one. And so when we don't do it, it's an immediate range capping, because there's no reason to balance here in the 3-bet pot, because we want to be either pushing the equity of our top two pair or our nut flush draw or our nut flush draw blocker in order to pot the turn, kind of a thing. And that's where the dynamic of having our range capped really comes from, is that on this specific type of board texture. And if you go into like the solvers, it'll show you why that's true and all that jazz. But just something to think about for everybody.
Perfect. All right, we have one last hand here.
We have one question that says, why not c-bet the flop then to not cap our range? Because we have a shitty two pair with no backdoor equity. And we need to have some checks in our range that can play check calls that are not one pair combinations. We need to have some two pair combinations to be check calling with. And so you want to choose the two pairs that are worse in rank and have worse robust equity, which means they play shitty on turn and river. Our hand plays terrible on a lot of turns and rivers, but it's still two pair, and so we can still check call it. Plus, a lot of the times it checks through, the turn comes in 8, and then we get to either check raise or play our probe and be really tough to play against. And so just because we cap ourselves by checking doesn't mean that we should not. If you have to cap yourself sometimes, is what I'm trying to say. You can't avoid it. It's impossible. And so when we do cap ourselves, what's most important is to protect our range as best as we can by putting some value combinations in that now capped range that we can play turns more fluidly with. Sorry, there is a couple of questions here.
Go for it. I'll be right back.
Boomer Hulk, thank you for the kind words. Appreciate you. Yeah, I pretty much only give away this much strat on Pav streams. So you gotta buy the courses usually to get this level of coaching. Max Smith, thank you for the kind words. Appreciate you. Spammy Senior just bought the PLO launch course. Thank you. Hell yeah, super stoked. For those of you who aren't aware, Pav probably has a command for it. I don't know what it is. But the PLO Launchpad is my most recent course. It's a $99 intro to PLO course. I try very hard to make a confusing game as easy as accessible as possible. So if you're trying to learn about PLO, get introduced to it, definitely check out the Launchpad. For those of you that have the Launchpad or maybe have been playing PLO for a little bit, we have the Advanced PLO Mastery course, which is the best PLO course ever made. I'm comfortable saying it. It is absolutely savage. I made it with Chris Wayner, who's one of the biggest United States PLO regs as a winner ever. Homie's just printed millions of dollars of PLO. And we literally made a game theory textbook so that you don't have to ever run a Monk or Solver set. It's a phenomenal course. What else we got? I Split Your Wig, thank you. And I've been enjoying your interactions today. Hope it's helping. What sites do I play on? I generally play on WSOP.com because it's a regulated site in the US. And then Spammy Senior says, fold more pre, you idiot. Yeah, that's the thing, especially if you're a low stakes PLO player. Fold that shit. Like that's just where it's at. What's the course called? Pav, what's the command for the course? Make sure that if you buy them to click on Pav's links so he gets that good affiliate money.
Yep. Also,
yeah, what's up?
Yeah, you also, if you want to get $25 off, you can use the promo code PAV25 for any product $99 or more, so even better, even more incentive.
Love it. That means that they can get $250 off the advanced course. That's insane.
Just $25, not 25%.
Oh,
that actually would be insane. If I asked Mike, how the fuck are we making money?
Way too smart.
Yeah. Also, if you guys want more content from Dylan for free, I have PLO MTT, which is a YouTube link to one we did like ages ago.
Yeah, that one also is an insane amount of value.
Yeah.
Like I was telling the chat, to like they should be thanking you because you're literally the only stream that I ever give away this much information on. They usually I generally make people, even on my stream, I don't go this in depth. It's like they usually got to pay for it to get the content. Let me think. I think that's good for now. You say you have one more hand?
Last hand, so we have the 10-10 Jack 9 on the button. And initially just want to check back. We have no equity here. Don't want to get check raised.
Yeah, this is a fun. We have no spades in our hand. We probably have the best hand a lot of the time. This turn makes me a little warm and fuzzy on the inside. Love to see it.
Yeah, but here's where I think I might make a mistake. I'm not sure how much raising on the turn I'm really allowed here.
I knew you were. I love this. This spot. I probably should make a video on this spot because I've had to do a decent amount of studying on it. I actually went over this spot with one of my more recent students. The turn raising range that we have here is hard to construct because it really depends on how often you're getting it in dominated or as a free roll. And so if I have 9-10, bare 9-10, I'm never raising this turn. Just never going to do it. Because there are so many river cards that change the board texture in a way that our hand can't interact with. And so if I have, and that's really the way that you want to think about these spots, is when the river invariably changes the board texture, because any heart, any spade, any board pair now makes the nuts different, how well does our hand play? And so this specific combination, it's not that hot, right? Doesn't do well on a board pair. It has a little bit of robust equity in that if a 9 or a 10 come out, then we have a higher straight. We have 2 10s in our hand, and our opponent most likely also has 9-10. And so that's 3 outs, 2 of which are spades. So it's really like 1.5 outs on the river here that we actually will improve, right? And so this combination doesn't get to play a raise because it doesn't improve on enough river cards. So we're not free rolling the other 9-10 portion of our opponent's range enough to overcome how many shitty river cards there are for the nut straight on the chart. And this specifically, this is an amazing example of this hand because it is as dynamic as it can possibly be. It has 2 flush draws on it and no board pair. And so all of the board pairs are available, and then all the flush draw changes are available. And so I'm literally only raising the turn here with a combination like a set and a straight, or a flush and a straight. Because now I have, and I'm also not raising, for example, 5-5, because my opponent can like have 7, 8, 9, 10. And so now I have reverse implied odds on my 5-5.
Right, sicko point there.
Yeah, and so it's even different with the ranking of your redraw as well, in terms of which combinations to raise. And that it goes back to the whole concept of robust equity, which is like, how likely is our hand to be the best hand on the river, given all the different possible rivers? And so, like, I'm not even raising 5-5, 9-10. I'm playing that as a call, and then when my opponent checks to me, I feel comfortable betting the full pot. Because now I actually can force indifference against 9-10 with a value portion of range. But if I have a hand, but if I have, for example, 9-10, 8-8 with 1 spade, 1 heart, smash that pop-up. Just like, smash it in their face. Because there's enough river cards that we can force indifference on. We have enough equity against other 9-10 combinations. And if a spade or a heart come out, we've blocked it from our opponent's range. They're less likely to have those because we actually block those 2 flush draws. We only have 1 heart in our hand, which isn't great. So it makes our 9 out a little bit cleaner. But that's, like, as I said, I'm going to stop here.
No, that is a great breakdown, and that is a huge lesson. Yeah. Like, that just makes me realize how atrocious this turn raise is.
Yes, this is an atrocious turn raise if you make it. Like, you really, it's tough, though. It's a very tough spot to think about because you have to just, for every river card that can come out, how does this affect what's going on?
Yeah, it's another Hold'em mindset.
Totally. It's like, I have the nuts, I raise. It's like, It's like, how many rivers do you like? It's like less than half. You like less than half the river cards.
For the raise sizes, you like only a pot size raise here? Beautiful, okay. I was thinking, it's just it's like you said, it's probably the most dynamic board available in PLO. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
This is a great spot. I'm actually super happy that you have this hand.
Yeah, love it.
Because I used to make a ton of mistakes. Like, it's hard to play. You really have to dive into, and understand how to use your sidecars, understand how your sidecars interact with individual rivers. It's a perfect example of why a game like PLO is so beautiful. Because it's like, okay, I have 9-10 as a hand class. Now what do I do with all the different possible 9-10s that I can have? And how do I really think about it? So yeah. This raise sucks, because then you're going to get, if you get reshoved on, it sucks. And then even if they call on over half of the river cards, you hate it.
Right.
And so now you're just like, what do I do? Kind of. And then then you also, maybe they just have an 8-9 combination that they fold now. They just fold their 8-9.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even like my face, I'm just kind of like, do I even like this? Doesn't seem very good. I'm just not impressed with it at all.
Yeah. And then they fold. But yeah, great hand to end on. Super good. Anyway, we want to just go through this course real quick?
Yep, sure.
So this is the $99 course. Pat can talk about it.
Yeah, we've got the introduction here, just a general introduction. Learning how equities work, learning how to use pro poker tools. Then we've gone to pre-flop stuff, your RFI ranges, which you get a PDF file of all hands you're opening in all positions. Also learn how to use the PLO matrix, plus some additional nodes on there. 5 tips of 3 and 4 betting was very helpful. Also, I think one of the most helpful things that you're going to find out is learning to 3-bet fold kings or squeeze fold kings, which not enough people, like that is a huge eye-opener in itself. Like I would say that more, like maybe 70-80% of people just 3-bet stack with kings in PLO in general, right? Up to PLO 100. Like I know I did beforehand, and that was a massive eye-opener in itself. Also, the 3 quick tips of playing aces pre-flop was very sick.
That was dude. I made that video literally just because of people asking me how to play aces. I was so tilted that I had to make a video about it. Like that was not anything other than me just being tilted. Like that was a pure spite video.
So we also got the stack to pot ratio and C betting, which you spoke about earlier, about how we can play 2 sizes based on our flop sizing and like which hands are good for that. Board textures and single raise pots, board textures and 3-bet pots, turns and rivers, 2 concepts of the turn and 2 concepts of the river. How to set yourself up for success in poker. This is just for anyone who's looking to make poker their job, I guess, really helpful. And what
or
to
even for like competitive recreationals, right?
Yeah, true.
It's like for anyone who wants to just approach poker and feel successful at it. It's about defining what success means.
Yep, and I think since we also would probably have a lot of American customers on Upswing, this video, what to expect from your first PLO live experience, is really helpful as well.
Yeah. And then you have the fat as hell play and explain section, which is just like, it's like every stake that you could possibly, like all the micro stakes, and then a series that Pap and I did that was so good, that was actually a past stream that I gave away too much information, so we put it in the course.
Yep.
Which we might do with this one too, because it's just like, it's too much information.
Yep, so there's some PLO 10, 25, 50, 100, and then we have reviewing the tournament with me. So this is a total 9-hour course?
9-hour course for $99 American dollars.
Yep.
We priced it at that literally just because that's what we thought people would pay for it, but this course is worth way more than $99.
Yeah, I think in reality, all courses across most legitimate sites are going to be worth like 5 to 10x more than what you pay, like at least.
One of the big issues though that I find, and this is more true in the past than it is now, is that people would make courses that weren't based in game theory, and so they wouldn't be evergreen. And so you can't charge more for something that will become less relevant over time. But this course and the advanced course, they're based in game theory. Like game theory is not changing. Right? We have the answers, and so this course is even worth more, or any modern course is worth more than courses in the past, because it's not like my pre-flop ranges are going to adjust away from the solved solutions. We know what the solved solutions are, and that's something that I've been thinking about a lot, just in terms of content creation, because it's beautiful for people trying to learn now as well, because it's less likely you get shitty information, and especially for a game like PLO, it's so easy for someone to tell themselves that they're good, or to create narratives that make sense. Like I'm one that has fallen victim to making narratives that sound good, and then I plug it into Bunker and it tells me that I was so wrong that I lost myself like 50 dBs for one play, kind of a thing. And so it's just really important for those of you who are learning poker generally to do research and make sure that you are not just buying content, but buying content that is going to point you in the correct direction and not give you improper fundamentals. And that's why Pav and I are both on Upswing, is that all the products on Upswing are just really good. People asking, is this the $100 course? That's only $100. Yes, fam. It is 99 American dollars. I would also recommend getting the PLO matrix with it, which is $49 a month, just because having the perfect ranges is just really helpful as you're starting in PLO. That's where you make your most money in low stakes PLO. If I could I said this before. If anyone wants tips on how to print money at low stakes PLO, you get good at preflop. That's the answer. And the PLO matrix is the easiest way to do that. The $99 course is the absolute nuts because it is the textbook. It's like we have solved all the earliest nodes of the game tree. It's like preflop, flop, turn, river, and then a bunch of different stuff. It is like 37 hours of just ridiculous content that if you truly go through the whole thing and synthesize the information, you will become a PLO. Like we had one dude who hadn't played PLO in years, bought our course, rigorously went through it. Who's a good friend of Brady, and then was beating Bovada 510 and 1020 at like 9 bigs per 100 after 2 months. Just copy. It's because he's copying and pasting how Chris approaches the game, and that's what Chris does. And so if you learn those thought processes and those strategies and go into those games with good tilt control and solid fundamentals, you're going to start printing money. That's just how it is.
And one more thing, can I add? What I loved about this course was each video, it was sharp and quick, straight to the point. And you highlighted those hands like really well. So like between 10 and 20 minutes. So I think what I found, if I watch like a 30 to an hour minute video, I lose interest at some point. Like my concentration dips and I don't care as much. But so many of these 20-minute plain explains, which are straight to the point, really broke down like 4 or 5 hands and it was perfect.
Yeah, that was one of my big things, specifically for the price point of this course, was to make it digestible.
Yep.
Like, you're buying a $99 course, you don't have to be a poker professional. You're trying to learn for fun. It's like, I don't want you to watch a 45-minute Munker, like, hardcore deep dive for these videos. I want you to open it up, be able to follow very easily, and then put it down. And then maybe watch it again, right? And then re-emphasize the different concepts that we're talking about. Thank you for having me as always, Pav. This is super
No
fun.
worries, mate. Thank you for being here. Knowledge bomb as always.
Yeah, hell yeah. Chat, you're wonderful. Appreciate you all, and we will talk to you soon.
Cool. Thank you, Dylan. Have a good one, mate.
Yeah. Always. Later, friends.
Bye. Have a good one. Thank you, Dylan, again. Latest, guys.
I don't do handshakes, people.